So guys, I'm really honored to be here today because now we're coming from gold to the digital gold, Bitcoin, and we achieved a new all-time high just like a few days ago. And now Bitcoin is really like the new cool thing. And like institutions are even coming. BlackRock has now the most profitable Bitcoin ETF. It's the most profitable ETF overall. They just like reached 100 billion in assets under management. This was the fastest growing ETF to reach 100 billion. And what we are doing here at NAKIKI SA, we are the first Bitcoin treasury company in Germany. And this is like something we are now seeing in lots of capital markets evolving. So we have different capital markets, and we have this phenomena where Bitcoin treasury companies we will go into the details later, but where Bitcoin treasury companies are growing. And in each capital market, we can see, maybe Markus, you can skip to the next slide. And yes, next one. Yeah, in each financial market, we can see there is those Bitcoin treasury companies, and they are always the best performing stock of the market. So in Japan, we have MetaPlanet, and they are the best performing stock in Japan. We have in the US, we have MicroStrategy, which were like the founder of, or the Michael Saylor was like the founder of the Bitcoin treasury movement, and they were like the best performing stock in the US. In the UK, we have Smarter Web Company, and now in Germany, we have the possibility to also play out the treasury playbook. And just like a few days ago, Michael Saylor, the first guy who set up a Bitcoin treasury company in the US with strategy and accumulated like almost 700,000 Bitcoin. He was going in an interview and he was telling about the German financial markets, and he was explaining, in Germany there's enough space for a Bitcoin treasury company which could reach up to $1 trillion in market capitalization, which is pretty heavy. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, and our strategy is super simple. It's really super simple, but super effective. Because what we now can do, we are not the first mover in the world, we're the first mover in Germany. So we can just study what is working in different capital markets. And then we can just look, okay, we want to take this, we don't do this. And what we come up is with a super simple strategy. It's raise capital, buy Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin, don't lose the Bitcoin, and don't sell the Bitcoin, and then repeat this. And what we can do, because we have like this underlying commodity Bitcoin, and lots of companies, they cannot buy Bitcoin directly, so they need like an equity type of form to keep the Bitcoin. So what we can do, we can refine the commodity Bitcoin and bring it into different financial structures. So for example, we can give them like a Bitcoin bond. We will just issue the first Bitcoin bond now in Germany, so that professional institutional investors who have no access to the capital market right now, they cannot just buy Bitcoin, but they can buy our Bitcoin bond. And other institutional investors, they cannot buy Bitcoin directly, but they can buy our stock. And some investors, they like the full upside and the full volatility, because Bitcoin and a Bitcoin treasury stock is super volatile. Some investors like this, but what we also can do, we can provide investors like a downside protection and a volatility protection. So if they buy our Bitcoin bond, then they don't have the full upside, but also they have downside protection and they have volatility protection. So we can just take the pure commodity Bitcoin and put it in our refinery, and especially targeted products we can put on the market. And then if you look like on the market, we can see like all those treasury companies in all those markets growing up. Now we have almost 200 treasury companies worldwide, but in Germany we are still like the first. And also what we can see here, that always those treasury companies are even outperforming Bitcoin, because you have to imagine Bitcoin is the best performing asset in the last 16 years. It was better than gold, better than silver, better than stocks. And you can also see it here. It was even beating the Magnificent Seven, S&P 500, gold, real estate. But it's super hard to beat Bitcoin. But there is a phenomena, Bitcoin treasury companies can beat Bitcoin, because what a Bitcoin treasury company is doing, they are basically a levered vehicle. But the cool thing is they are using intelligent lever. So not like stupid lever, what is like a private investor using, but we have intelligence lever, which means we have no margin call. So there is no real margin call risk like from a private investor. And as a public listed company, you just have like lots of more possibilities than the private investor. And that's also why strategy is performing way, way better even than Bitcoin, but also, of course, with way more volatility. Yeah. Can you go to the next slide? So, and this is now really interesting what we're seeing here. So here we see like the whole capital market. This is like the global wealth. You can see around about 300 billion in bonds, 300 billion in real estate. Then you have like over 100 billion in, sorry, it's trillion, we are English now. It's always different in Germany. So it's 300 trillion and 300 trillion in real estate, 100 trillion, a bit more in equities. You have gold now with, it's like not even updated. It's gold is around 27 or something like that already, or is it already 30 trillion? And if you compare this with Bitcoin, Bitcoin is like 2 trillion. So there is like a massive upside, because our thesis is also that we will see capital shifting from the bond market, from the real estate market, from the equity market, and also from the gold market. And we can already see this happening. Capital will shift from those markets to Bitcoin. But now, out of this global capital, out of this is like 900 trillion, a bit more than 900 trillion, 100 trillion institutional capital cannot directly flow into Bitcoin. They are mandated to buy equities, so they cannot buy commodities. Bitcoin is like a digital commodity, but they cannot buy the commodity. They have to buy a stock, they have to buy a bond or something like that, a convertible or something like that. And this is like the big opportunity, because now we can go to those capital markets where capital is basically trapped and the capital is not able to flow into Bitcoin. And we can just target those capital markets, give them special vehicles, because every capital market, like a real estate investor, that likes different products than, for example, let's say a bond investor or equity investor. So we can just target those markets, and a Bitcoin treasury company can now get the capital out of this market, because, as I already said, our thesis is that Bitcoin is the best store of value, and therefore we will see massive, massive shifts. And we like also now in a global debasement rate, what is happening all over the world, that people are not trusting the bonds anymore. They are not trusting like the government anymore. They're not trusting like the money anymore, like the euro, the dollars, and whatever. So what's happening? They are going into Bitcoin. They are going also into gold. And this is like a big, big opportunity. And we're just starting out. And basically, we are outsmarting the system, because we are not just long Bitcoin. We're not just going for the upside for Bitcoin, but also we are taking the fiat downside. So the debasement of the euro, the debasement of the dollars, because all our debt, which we are like raising, or the debt which we are making to buy more Bitcoin, is all denominated in dollars, and dollars are depreciating, and Bitcoin is appreciating every year in purchasing power. So Bitcoin is going up like 50% compound annual growth rate, 60%, something like that. And we steadily all the time have like this dollar and euro and basically all the fiat currencies in the world, they are all going down. They're all going to, I will not say hell, but they are going down. And this is like the big, big trade which is now happening, which is, in my opinion and in our opinion, like one of the biggest shifts in capital markets. And we are like now the early starter. And now you can probably go to the next slide. Yeah, and also like in the meanwhile, we have like the US, which created a strategic Bitcoin reserve. We have like the Wall Street, which is going for Bitcoin, BlackRock, which is going for Bitcoin. Like all the big players are going for Bitcoin. And then we have like this flywheel, which we can create, because we have like a very, very nice mechanic, which we can use. Because if you break down what we are doing, we're actually just trying to get the investor more Bitcoin per share. So if you buy our stock, then what you get, because we want to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible, accretive as possible for the investors. So what will happen over time, we will create something which in the Bitcoin scheme is called like a Bitcoin yield, because if you buy our stock, the Bitcoin is not fixed, but the Bitcoin will grow like all the time. So we can create something like a Bitcoin yield. And that's also why oftentimes those treasury companies are traded in a premium, which means the stock is valued higher than the underlying Bitcoin. So example, the stock is valued for 11 or 12 Bitcoin if you measure it in Bitcoin. And what you can do then, this is like the Bitcoin flywheel, you can dilute the shares. In this case, dilution of shares is something really, really good, because as an investor of a Bitcoin treasury company, you want always that your Bitcoin per share goes up. And if you have this premium, if your stock is valued more than the underlying Bitcoin, you can just issue new shares, and then you can take the money, and then you can buy Bitcoin out of the money, and then your Bitcoin per share grows. Then in the next step, Bitcoin price is going up, then it's easier to raise money, then you can raise more money, then you can buy more Bitcoin per share. And this is like an positive feedback loop which you can create. And also, like, if you look what the other treasury companies did, this is like how Michael Saylor basically, just with this, what you can see on the slides, how Michael Saylor, out of his 700,000 Bitcoin, this is probably for 300,000 or 400,000 Bitcoin, just what you can see out of this slide, how he achieved this massive amounts of Bitcoin. And sure, Bitcoin price is increasing, Bitcoin price is running up. So you have to really be aggressive. So you really have to look that you can raise as much capital as possible and buy as much Bitcoin as accretive as possible for the shareholder. And that's what we're basically doing. And now I would like to pass forward to Markus. And
yeah, taking up effectively on the last mentioned stock from Marc was strategy. So formerly MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor, the CEO, previously a kind of software company, 500 million on cash. They just decided in 2020 what to do with the money, and thought it's not worth just parking it on the money market. And so they decided 50% into Bitcoin, 50% in a share buyback. After a while, the shares started to perform that well that they even canceled and put the 250 million share buyback also into Bitcoin. So that was a kind of first hour of that Bitcoin strategy, what we are now implementing here in Germany. The share price then just effectively is very much correlated to the Bitcoin price itself. And it's also very much depending on the capital measurement. So just taking the last couple of weeks, they decided just to go as an example how innovative this kind of old wine into new tubes is creating a kind of situation when it comes down to preference shares. So 4 types: STRC, STRF, STRK, STRD. So they just use a kind of alphabet they accumulated at least on a 9% per annual, or they just go for a monthly payment. They try to fix it as a kind of a bond. So if the share price goes above 100, they sell it. If it goes below 100, they cash invest and buy it up to 100. So very innovative, nevertheless very cash intensive strategy, just to make a stable cash flow out of the underlying, compared with a more or less stable bond-like share structure. They call it even a perpetual. I mean, a share itself, depending or regardless of its ordinary pref or whatever, is a going concern. It's a perpetual per definition, but nevertheless, that shows just how innovative this area is now getting also into some placements of tokens, etc. I come back later to that. I think we have a great network to explore on that. MetaPlanet previously was a kind of hotel situation coming out of Japan, a kind of same situation, an umbrella, a kind of a cold IPO situation. They created and adapted that Bitcoin treasury model on top. so that BTC, TC was also quite successful here with MetaPlanet in Japan. Then some other, like UK, Marc already mentioned, SmarterWeb, a kind of marketing agency, also going into this kind of business model. So that is a kind of trend in Germany. I think we are quite ahead if it comes down to the regulatory environment, which is a key factor to go and take the money in a kind of pipe situation from different asset classes into the new area. So we saw quite a very innovative storage and custodian in 2019. Then in 2022, that e-money asset reference token situation is also quite interesting. So I think we don't have to hide ourselves here in Germany if it comes down to the watchdog. Atai is the same. They all combine a kind of biotech business models or a previous operational business model, and then they decided too much cash on the balance sheet and how to use it to protect it against inflation. And we also think that is a very smart decision to denominate everything in Bitcoins, go for that kind of flywheel, issue new shares or go for dilution and take it from there. The mission, as said, is basically add Bitcoin to the balance sheet permanently and strategically, raise capital via equity, structured instruments, convertibles, new innovative bond structures. The positive thing we definitely see is that we have a quite safe regulatory environment. Currently, the situation is quite liquid. Bitcoin is raising up to new highs, and it seems to be also have a regulatory supportive environment out of the US if it comes down to the Genius Act. The Genius Act effectively issues and allows corporates and banks for stable coins. Stable coins have to be funded by the treasuries. The treasuries are lagging a kind of demand in the auctions. So when it comes down to rolling over new debts which are maturing in the US, they prolong probably the lifetime of the US dollar for another 5, 10 or whatever years with these kind of underlying stable coin and treasury creating a demand. And on top, we see that stable coin is massively floating and the fuel effectively for Bitcoin itself. So a lot of global capital is attracted from the old into the new area. You can call it maybe also a kind of shift in debt out of the US dollar base, and it's sucked up by the new asset classes itself, Bitcoin. And that is what effectively that accumulative engine here is saying that we create a longer term value for investors, because it's not that easy to invest in if it comes down to regulated money. And the equity is one of the most popular vehicles, bonds as well. The combination, as said, I think is also our expertise. So we see ourselves very much with a general standard listed CDAX company in a very good position to take it from there. We have a strong team, very experienced in raising capital. I think we are very creative when it comes down to structuring. We are very, very well connected and have expertise if it comes down to the network itself. Just to mention tokenization, Marc and myself, we had just 2 calls on that issues. So Luxembourg structure out of the US, etc., is looking into supporting these kind of focus on the US, on the Bitcoin treasury companies. So it seems to be that is currently really in the focus of the big investors itself. we see different multiples or key valuation figures showing up, and like the BTC yield, the market net asset value, so that kind of Bitcoin to share ratios with the premium ideally, etc. So that is, I think, quite interesting if it comes down to like the old multiples on real estate, FFOs, funds from operations, etc., PE, EV, EBITDA, etc. We can here learn and see a very interesting, fast forward moving trend. And just keeping in mind that Bitcoin itself is only 16 years, the algorithm takes until 2140. The difficulty rate each 210,000 blocks and 4 years is just halving itself. So it gets rarer and even more rarer. So it seems to be that that is a very deflationary asset. And there is maybe just the early movers, the first adapters, and not even the mass fastest reached by now. Traditional capital markets think that that is a useful mezzanine finance. So we are thinking of a kind of combination to make taking both of the best of two worlds, just to combine here that equity bond into a Bitcoin approach. Therefore, we also think that dilution is a good thing in the sense that you may imagine a kind of picture there. There is a group of people and you just ship in a banquet and just more and more food. And so everyone is happy. I think that is a kind of acquisitorial business model. We also saw with some other infrastructure plays in the market. In Spain and Germany, I remember one. So that is when you just increase, or when you as a company are able to increase your share price despite increase of number in shares. And so a dilution is being priced out by a positive price reaction. And I think that is the acquisitory flywheel here for positive NAV, so trading with a premium. That is effectively in a sense, again, a positive comment if it comes down to monetization. If we are really seeing the market is willing to buy up here the Bitcoin. And let me here also highlight some principles. So what Marc always said at the beginning, we buy it, we hold it, we don't lose it. We take a professional custody exchange here in Germany. And so we think that structure is quite valid and it's robust. And we think it's innovative if it comes down to the backing. So a kind of a collateralization comes on top, and that will increase if a positive underlying performance will also increase or will deliver a participation over the coming years.
And so Markus, do you have the clock on your, because I think otherwise we don't have time for.
Okay, yeah, let me just, maybe that is the team here, slip to the appendix. That is what I mentioned with that kind of early adapter. So I think we are not in the inner circle anymore, but we are moving a little bit outside in waves. And so I think we are maybe hitting into this kind of pension fund area now. Hedge funds are looking into it. That is that hash work power law. We just had today a call with an expert in derivative trading. So the option market is developing. It's tight, but nevertheless, it shows also quite high open interest if you scroll down. And then I leave it open for Q&A. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much for this interesting presentation about your company. So first off, a question from Michael. He follows us every single IIF. So I have to ask, how many Bitcoins you currently own as of today?
None.
Okay. So at which state are you right now? You have cash on hand, you're raising money to buy your first set of Bitcoin. Where are you in the development of the company?
Yes. Maybe the history is windeln.de. That was an old umbrella. It was the worst IPO in Germany, I heard from an institutional friend of mine, but that shouldn't stay there forever. And it was sold out, the storage to, I think, US, the brand to Japan, and the umbrella to a kind of insolvency plan, capital guy. They in between try to implement a kind of legal processing. That legal processing is like Forest AG, listed since 2000, a very long-running cash flow business, very dependent on how the success in the judges come along. And so it wasn't that optimal for the capital market. Then management buyout came along. Our CEO, Andreas Wegerich, is now holding 19.92% and took over. And that is when the point came and we decided to go for the Bitcoin treasury. So we are just cleaning up everything. We are debt-free. The insolvency plan is done, and we are now starting from scratch.
Okay, perfect. And how much cash you have on hand right now?
We don't disclose, but we are in a good way. We are on the way now to raise the bond. So in the next couple of days, we are currently pre-sounding and fixing the conditions. We plan with a non-prospect straight bond of roughly 3 to 7 years, maybe 5 in the middle of spread. Indication is what probably our peers with MicroStrategy is paying on the prefs. And then we can do without any prospects raising up to 8 million. So that is probably a frame just to imagine what is coming up if it comes down to the straight bond issue.
Okay, perfect. And then after that, two questions. How will you leverage the Bitcoin after acquiring them? Do you do an asset-backed loan, or do you do something like that?
No.
So
yeah,
or do they stay 100% clean? And then the second part of the question is then, how do you guys charge fees and act like a fund, or how does it work on those two sides?
Yeah. So we don't leverage in a sense. We hold them. We store them with exchange here in Germany, quite prominent. We think that is a regulatory environment where we feel safe. The custody business and the safety and the regulatory environment, I think we can tick these boxes. It's not yet coming, but I think it's necessary for the industry to invent the kind of assets under management fee, you know, these kind of hedge fund 2 and 20. We think about 2 spot 121. So we should generate and be able to take fees out of these assets under management. We also implemented, if it comes down to the miners business, kind of profit sharing. That could be a kind of combination if you assume that is a kind of European call options at the end after 7 years, for example. So a lot of opportunities if it comes down to structuring, as well as then also justifying cash flow from traditional asset managers to make that more comparable and also more, let's say, operative cash flow beside the appreciation of the underlying, which we totally believe in on top.
Perfect. Well, this is all the time we had. Markus and Marc, thank you very much for joining, guys. This is an interesting new business model, a new offering on the German market. I hope people enjoy what they hear during this presentation. And if so, don't hesitate to contact either Markus or Marc. Guys, thank you very much. And we'll be for sure following the success of your story and your growth in the next few months. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, guys.